someone, more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with you and see how we can create synergies. Awesome. Thank you so much, Team Creator. So we will begin. We're a minute over. Everyone who's logged in everywhere, hello, whether you're watching it right now live or you're going to watch uh, this telecast, if you will, sometime in the future, hopefully the near future, if not at least the later future. Hello and good evening from Shalu in New Delhi. My name is Shalu Butcher. That's Bhuchar. For someone who's joining in for the first time, it's not Butcher. As you can see from the name on the screen, the little thing that they give you for your identity. I come with about 26 years of work experience. The past nearly 20 have been purely in the space of people management, consulting organizations in how do they manage their people, how do they manage their performance, how do they manage change, and then also into coaching. So I'm hoping that what I have to share today is something that you will find useful. It comes from experience. It comes from learning. I am educated. I'm a dually specialized MBA from IMT Ghaziabad, and I have an executive postgrad diploma in change management and in organization development. So that's the background, educational and experience-wise, that I come with. Let's see. Hi, Sanjana. You're a product manager and you're hoping the stream will help you improve your team's performance. I have my fingers crossed. Please ask me whatever your questions are. I prefer to keep this interactive through questions, and it helps to do that rather than me just sitting over here and spouting, gyan as if I were some academician or as if I were some big knowledgeable person. I love to share my experience, which is why I'm here. So I'm hoping that whatever I've experienced, whatever I've gone through, whatever I've learned, will hold you in good stead as well. Hello, Raki. Good to see you. Sid, you're a consultant, and you're a consultant of what? Please help me understand that so that you can also have those same or similar conversations with your own clients. How to cope up with business sales pressure. We'll come to that, Ashwini. Straight on, bang on. Like we've just started April, and of course, the pressure has already started mounting, especially given the last 2 years that we've had. I know that sales pressure is going up. Ashwini, tell me a little bit more about what's the space that you're in. Because how do you cope with business sales pressure in consulting can be very different in manufacturing, can be very different in fast-moving consumer goods, etc. So if you just share a little bit with me on the space that you're in, the industry that you're in, that's going to kind of help. Enough said about that. Let's take a look at our topic for today, strategy and business performance management. Do you think there's a link between the two? Let me start out with a question rather than me telling you stuff. What do you guys think? Do you think there is some element of a synergy between them? Are they correlated? What's going on? Let's hear from you. And Team Creator, please also keep an eye on socials. If there is any question there, I would be really, really grateful if you could just tell me that. And I can answer that here as well. Okay, you do think there's synergy. What should we do in low sales to manage the pressure? I'll come back to that, Ashwini. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Team Creator. So what's the kind of synergy that you guys think exists between strategy and business performance management? Anyone? Okay, when there's complete silence, okay. If there's no clear strategy, we cannot effectively assess performance. Absolutely. One part is we cannot effectively assess performance. I'll wait, Sid. That's perfectly fine. Long answer question. I like that. Would you like to answer in a paragraph, or do you have multiple options? Paragraph, please go right ahead. I'll wait, Sid. And in the meanwhile, I'll just comment on what Sanjana said. If there's no clear strategy, we can't effectively assess performance. The fact of the matter is that if you don't have a strategy, performance is not going to be aligned anyway. It's just going to be all over the place. It's going to be haywire. There's going to be no synergizing. the organization will be moving in different directions. So no goals. You will not be able to achieve anything. And unfortunately, strategy is a word which scares most people. Most people say, oh my God, this requires a lot of forecasting, a lot of understanding of the market. Of course, it does require understanding of the market, but people just get daunted by the word strategy. But truly, if you really look at it, even if you have to get from your home to your office on a rainy day and you know that there are puddles on the road, you do define, here is the route that I'm going to take. If I see traffic, let's say now we have Google Maps. If I see red zones or yellow zones, orange zones on Google Maps for too long, here's the other alternative route that I'm going to take. That's one element of strategy that you do. So we're strategizing all the time. We just get scared when it comes to business strategy because there's a lot that rides on that strategy being correct, being utilized, and then finally being aligned. Sorry, not finally, but starting off being aligned to what the organization aims to achieve. So Sid says my answer is actually quite similar to Sanjana's. I think most people in the workplace don't really know what they're doing and what they're being assessed for. And that's because there isn't a clear strategy for them and no clear goals or vision. I think that's a very important thing to bring out. I'm not sure if there isn't a clear strategy and a vision for them, or it's not being communicated and cascaded. In all the time that I have done consulting, the one thing that I've seen that makes or breaks an organization's strategy / achievement of goals, it's communication. How well has the strategy been communicated? How well are the goals aligned to the strategy, which is aligned to the organization's vision? How well is the communication happening on a regular basis? Is it happening at all? Is the alignment done between here's the vision of the organization, here are the goals that we want to achieve, here's our strategy to achieve these goals, and here's what you do. Whatever it is that your role is, here's how it actually fits into the strategy. And that then goes and fits into the vision of the organization. Yeah. If you just look at every individual who's working in an organization, why do people come to work? Is it because out of the goodness of my heart, I'm saying, come on, let me utilize my skills? And the organization says, come, we're very philanthropic. We'd like to give out some money. So we're happy to give you a job because, we've got all this surplus lying around. Is that why people get jobs? No, people get jobs because there's a certain skill set that they bring to the table. And that skill set helps the organization achieve its objectives. If it isn't the right fit, that's a different matter altogether. But if it's, and when I say if it isn't the right fit, imagine I'm a danseuse and I have, all my education has been in dance. And I go and I apply for a job as a team leader in an organization which works on quantum science. Is that a fit? Absolutely not. But if I have educational qualification and I have experience, which is related to something to do with quantum science, maybe in data analytics, maybe in physics, something to do with quantum science, then me going and applying for a team leader's role makes sense. When I have those skills which are correlated to quantum science, that's when I can be assessed. So the assessment part of it can only happen when the right people are in the right job. And the strategy that gets created, unfortunately, one misconception about strategy is that it's only about how will we achieve the numbers. What a lot of us miss out on is, if I have to achieve X, what are the kind of people that I need? What kind of skill development is required for the people that I already have and the people that I'm going to hire? What's the kind of cultural fitment that we need over here? Do we need very serious people who get the gist of what needs to be done? Do we want people who are only very creative and very ideative? Do we want people who are only drivers towards achieving results, or do we want a good mix of people? So strategy also includes what kind of people are we going to hire. Strategy also includes what kind of time zones are we going to be working in, what kind of markets we're going to address. When all of that comes into and forms a part of the strategy, when the people who are responsible for creating the strategy keep in mind and factor all these things in, and then they create the strategy, that's when goals get created. That's when goals get cascaded down to the people who are actually going to, number one, lead the people who are doing it, and then finally get cascaded to the people who are actually executing on the ground. So the link between strategy and business performance management is so huge, both from a reporting to the board, reporting to stakeholders perspective, as well as reporting in, or just reviewing and communicating it to the people who are executing that strategy. I'm going to take a quick minute, look at the chat, see the responses, and then come back to this. People join a job, hopefully, if they have some passion for it. Vignesh, I also hope that, because if people come in for a job without any passion at all, any liking for the job at all, they won't last for too long. Or they'll end up creating an environment which is not conducive, which is not healthy, which is not helpful. So yeah, I do hope that people join in with some passion at least. Sanjana says you can always learn on the job as well if you have a passion and an ability to learn as well, right? So again, what I'd like to say, Sanjana, is if I have the passion, but I don't have any educational background, I don't have any skills at all in doing that job, my willingness to learn will be very high. And so maybe the hard work that I put in might be very, very strong as well. It will depend on the role. Does the role require someone who will hit the ground running and take on the job and really start things moving? Or do I have the luxury to hire people who are very passionate, don't have the skills for it, so I can develop and groom them? In different stages of an organization, both kinds of people are required. So let's say, for example, we've got a startup which is really, which has already been funded. They already have a lot of money. Their ideas are great. At this point of time, they need people who are ready to hit the ground running, ready to get stuff rolling, ready to take action. And then there is an organization that is very well established, where their product and their production is nicely, deeply set. Can they afford to only have people who hit the ground running? Maybe not. Maybe they can actually have people who join in, who can learn. And that's why organizations take on interns, right? And then those interns get absorbed, because you can see that this person has the passion, has the willingness, has the drive, has the right cultural fit, and they can be taught those skills. There are some skills which can be taught on the job. There are some skills that can't be taught on the job. So it will totally depend on the kind of organization that you're stepping in, the kind of role that you're stepping in for, which then defines, can I hire somebody who has a lot of willingness, who has a lot of passion to do something, and may not necessarily have the skills. Passion and skills combination will definitely make you successful. Absolutely rightly said, Ashwini. You kind of touched on this, but what are the components of a business strategy? Could you go over those in more detail? I'm happy to do that in another session. I actually wanted to also speak about what is strategy and what is business performance management. Broadly, I think if I could just outline it for you rather than going into too much detail, your strategy will include what's the kind of market, what's your consumer segment that you want to address. So if you only want to address youngsters, will therefore your marketing strategy require you to address a more senior audience? No. So will it require you to address a 40 plus or a 50 plus audience? Maybe not. But if your product is such, let's say, for example, there is an organization that specializes in bringing together products which are senior friendly. Will it make sense for them to address the 16-year-old market? Not. It won't, right? Will it make sense for them to address even the 40s market? It may, because the 40s market is usually the ones that are looking for what kind of products can we purchase which will make life easy for our parents, our elderly in the family. So, what is my consumer segment? What is my end user segment is one part of the strategy that you want. What's the kind of marketing and positioning strategy that we want to achieve is the other part. What kind of people will we need is the third component that you definitely want to look at. What are our revenue streams for the same product? Um, is it going to be a traditional revenue stream? Are we going to take a hybrid model of traditional plus online? Are we going to take just online? Like, where is our presence? What channels are we going to take? So, for example, Agio is mainly selling online. I don't think Agio yet has any stores. Nike is selling online plus in their stores. So each organization will need to kind of look at those strategies as to what are the main elements of strategy. Then comes also the whole part of the measurement of that strategy. And that's why it's also strategy and business performance measurement. What are our measures going to be? What do we usually measure ourselves on? There's going to be the customer service strategy that will need to be taken care of. There's going to be a complaints redressal strategy. So all those components then go into creating your overall strategy. How will we address this? How will we address this? How will we address that? I want to be on an Amazon or an online seller. What should I do first? Strategy. I think the first thing has to be your vision, right? And your vision wouldn't include where you want to be. So, okay, let me just take a step back. In the large scheme of things, let's say you're just starting out, or you've been an organization, you're a small business owner, and now you desire to expand your business. As a small business owner, or just as someone who's starting out, who's left their job, or who's decided that I don't even want to go the job route, even as a young person, you decide to become an entrepreneur, your first step will need to, of course, be what's my business. You can't have a vision, you can't have a strategy if you don't have a product or a service that you want to market, right? So you identify what's my business. You then identify what's my vision. Where do I see myself and my business 20, 30, 40 years down the line? And then you bring it down to 5 years down the line. Once I have my vision, what's my mission? Why am I in business? What am I hoping to achieve? What am I hoping to change? What am I hoping to create? You create the mission out of that. Once you have the vision and the mission, then you move into creating your objectives or your goals. Once you have your objectives and your goals, that's when you kind of create the strategy. So I want to be an Amazon or an online seller is at this stage, not at this stage, is within the strategy. So the first thing you want to do is identify what's the business, what's my vision, what's my mission, then what are my goals, and then what's my strategy. Some organizations also tweak it. They say, here's our vision, here's our mission, here's the strategy, and then we will make our goals. Depending on where you are, depending on how mature your team is, you may choose to do that. I'm of the school of thought that says first have your vision, mission, then you have your objectives and your goals, then have your strategy in place. Rahul asks, I want to expand my coaching business. I've done social media marketing and organic. How and where do I reach out to get clients? That's a very, very specific ask. Rahul, I'm happy to talk to you one-to-one about it, especially given that I can't sit down and coach everyone on what's your strategy that you should make. But I'm happy to support you with it if you reach out to me. You have my contact details from the last session. For anyone who doesn't, I know Team Creator will help you. I'm just going to put down my email ID right here. It's coachbutcher@gmail.com. As a student, what should be my takeaway? I'm assuming that's your question. What should be my takeaway, or what's my take would be how much percentage of profit am I getting? I don't know. Depends on where you're going and who you've talked to. Atharva, beautiful name. So what should be my takeaway? I think, Atharva, if you're planning to get into business, your takeaway should be, do I have my steps called out? Do I even know what I want to do? What space I want to be in? Why I want to be in that space? What change or what impact am I hoping to create? What do I want to, and therefore your goals, what do I want to achieve? And then come into my strategy. So your takeaway should be, what's my life cycle? And then how do you talk about business performance management? Hi, Dharmendra. So, bringing it back now into our conversation as we were having. So, once you have your strategy elements in place, as I started out with saying, and as was the intended crux of or core of today's session, was around how do strategy and business performance management go hand in hand? How do they talk to each other, such that an organization is moving forward and such that people are actually achieving their goals? The organization is able to expand, make its profits, go ahead with what they have strategized. Oh, here's another element to what your question was, Geeta. Most large organizations today and most organizations worth their salt are putting in these four elements in their strategy. And they're the four P's. You will be able to find more about this on the internet: about the people, about the profits, about the planet, and about the purpose. It doesn't have to be in this order, but your strategy must include these four things: people, planet, profits, purpose. When you have that in your strategy, all your goals, everything that the organization does beautifully starts to cascade. And Geeta, as someone who's running an NGO or involved with an NGO, I think if you just look at those four elements of people, profit, planets, and purpose, you'll find that your strategy starts to flow so much better if you don't already have a strategy. Thank you, Team Creator. For peace, people, planet, purpose, and profit. Absolutely correct. And like I said, it isn't in any particular order. So if I said it in one, don't take that to be the only order. For a lot of organizations, the order keeps changing. Not for a lot of, for every organization, the order changes from the other, from their competitor or from their peers in the same industry. Now comes the whole point of how do you ensure that your strategy is converting into action, which therefore means is converting into business performance. Once you have your strategy, you must make sure that it gets cascaded. Let's say that you are in a large organization and you have multiple layers of people between those who make the strategy and those who implement the strategy. Every level needs to know what is expected of them, what is it that will make their role feed into the strategy and therefore help achieve goals, what is every individual meant to do, what are the consequences of not doing, how will they be measured, and how will that be communicated. So when you have all of these things very clearly called out at every level and communicated, that's what makes a difference to how your strategy actually gets implemented. Good morning, Dharmendra. It's evening here. Thank you very much for joining in. So we're talking about strategy and business performance management and how the two talk to each other and how communication actually is the key, is the crux, is the core from where I see it, of making sure that your strategy and business performance management are not just aligned, but are talking to each other on a real time, almost a day-to-day basis. Now, somebody had asked me questions around sales. Let's just take a look at sales. In a lot of organizations, sales is a daily conversation. In a lot of organizations, sales and numbers are a weekly conversation. They get reviewed only at the end of the month, but the conversation happens on a daily basis. So if you have low sales happening, you must be able to address that immediately. Remember this, your strategy will be worth nothing if the numbers don't come in. It means that the conversation between strategy and business performance, in this case sales, is not happening. If my salespeople don't know my strategy, and if they aren't bringing me information from the ground for me to be able to see, do I need to tweak something in my strategy? Then I'm never going to be able to achieve my numbers. Of course, your question, if I remember correctly, let me just go back and see. Ashwini was asking how to cope up with business sales pressure, and then what should we do in low sales to manage the pressure, are more questions related to emotional intelligence and how do you have those conversations. That you must have those conversations is what today's session is all about. Are you communicating to every individual in the pipeline, in the line? This is how your role relates to our goals. This is how your role feeds into the strategy. If you don't do this, this is the impact of it. And if you don't have those conversations, number one, just simply explaining my role to me and how my role feeds into the strategy. And then number two, equally importantly, another reason why a lot of organizations struggle or even end up failing is because, pardon me, I don't understand the impact of my role on somebody else's role. Dependency management is not called out very clearly in our planning. Our strategy must lead to very, very clear and detailed plans. What am I going to achieve in the year? To achieve this in the year, what am I going to do in every quarter? To achieve my quarter goals or my quarter results, what do I need to do every month? What do I need to do every week? What do I need to do on a daily basis? We don't educate and we don't hold people responsible and accountable for their daily actions. You will find a lot of us struggling for time. I can't tell you the number of time management sessions I've done. Till one day I just stood up and I realized and I said, you know what, I could keep talking about time. And I said this in the middle of a session to a leader. I said I could continue to do time management sessions till the cows come home. And yet nothing will change because you're not communicating with your teams as to how their actions are impacting other people. There is no dependency management going on over here. There is no planning going on over here. Your strategy is worth nothing if there's not a good, robust plan. So you must remember that. And I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat. So you discussed how strategy should inform business performance management, but I'm also curious, how does performance management inform strategy? I'm going to come back to that, Araspi, so just hold on, please. Oh, thank you, Team Creator, for the emotional intelligence stream link there. So Ashwini, please do go through that. And I've shared my email ID. If you have any questions around that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and we can have a chat. So bringing this back, we were talking about how do you make sure, actually, sorry, let me take a stop here. Any questions that I can answer apart from the one about performance management informing strategy? Anything around when I say strategy must talk to your plans, plans must talk to the individual, and an individual must know what are their tasks that they need to do and what is the impact of them not doing their tasks, not just on themselves, but also on the team, on other people, on other teams. Do remember that when a strategy is made, when you're working in an organization, it's not just your department alone. I think that's one of the things that flummoxes me when I walk into an organization and people tell me, oh, but my department. Oh, but my team. I must share an example with you. So the other day, I went to this branch for a credit card issue. So this is a large Indian bank, and I unfortunately or fortunately hold a credit card with them. And I had deposited a check for a large amount for my credit card payment. And why I'm mentioning large amount is because it really, cost me my credit score. Now, we deposited the check. It was my mistake. By mistake, I wrote one digit incorrectly. So my check was supposed to have been transferred and cleared. And it was one of those few times when I could not access my internet banking and I had to deposit a check. So I was not able to, and I made that one error. Anyway, I didn't realize that error till the day I walked into this bank branch to ask, where's my check? I think 15 days after I had deposited the check and 15 days after my due date, actually 18 days after my due date, I get a message from the credit card department saying you've not made your payment. And I'm like, how is this even possible? I have cut a check. I have a photograph of that check. That check was deposited in the hands of a teller at this branch. How is it possible? So when I went there, actually before I went there, I first sent somebody from my staff and I said, can you please find out? My staff member had me talk to the gentleman at the branch. And that fellow said, yes, madam, it will get done in the evening. So this is the 18th of the month. The check had been deposited on the 11th. So ideally, it should have gotten cleared on the 14th. It didn't. On the 18th, I sent my staff and I said, can you find out? I spoke to the guy. He said, yes, ma'am, we will definitely get this done this evening. 18th came and went. I got another call on the 21st or the 22nd saying you've not paid your bill. Now, for me, that's like smoke coming out of my ears, and I'm sure you'll all understand that. When you have, your credit score, you can see your credit score kind of sliding down, right? And anyway, it's a black mark. You don't want to be known as a person who didn't pay your bills on time. I went to the branch and I asked another gentleman sitting over there, a teller. I said, "Can you please tell me what's happening to my check?" "We don't have your check, ma'am." I said, "Can you please check? Here's the check. We've deposited it. I've spoken." So I related the entire story to the person. And that person took out my file, took out a particular file, and then he saw the check. And he looked at the check and it had a stamp of the check going out on the 14th. Now, it was later that we realized that I'd written one digit incorrectly. How, I don't know, but it got written incorrectly. But when I asked him, I said, "This left here on the 14th. Can you please tell me why on the 22nd, I'm still getting a call that says you've not made your payment?" "Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm not the one who took the check. Plus, once it leaves our branch, we are not the credit card team. Once it leaves our branch, we have no way of controlling your check." That was enough to literally send me over the edge. You are the bank here. You are the individual. For me, I don't care who else is doing whatever else they're doing. For me, you are the representative of the bank. You are the bank. I don't care which other person, which other department, which other team is doing what they're doing. And of course, whatever happened later, it happened. But the fact of the matter is, nobody in that bank is having that conversation of, this is your role and this is how your role correlates to others. And if an issue happens, if a complaint happens, this is how you're supposed to address it. There goes your strategy. You can do your strategy, whatever, to increase your numbers, to have a great customer service score, and so on and so forth. But if your people on the ground, people who are facing the customer, people who are in the field, if they don't know what they have to do, if the strategy has not reached them by way of communication, by way of conversation, everything will fall flat. Whether you're a small organization of 5 people, whether you're a smaller organization of 2 people, or whether you're a large organization which has upwards of 30,000 employees or 15,000 employees, it doesn't matter what your size is. If you've not cascaded and communicated your strategy clearly to every individual, your business performance management is going to suffer. There are no two ways about that. Could you share a little bit more about how we can know for sure that the strategy is trickling down to all levels of the organization? As a senior leader, please, whether you're listening live or you're going to listen at a later date, please keep your finger on the pulse of your people on the street, so to speak. And you don't necessarily have to have people on the street, but people who are executing, people who are facing the customer, keep your finger on their pulse. The best leaders that people remember are the people who know what their people down the line are doing. Unfortunately, in the culture that we are in, most organizations see leaders being people who are strutting around because they have a position. If you're one of those, please change now. A good leader is not one because they have a position. A good leader is somebody who is able to make sure that people feel passionate about coming to work every day and about knowing what's happening in the organization, to the organization, and for the organization. Have a word with people. Call up people. In a lot of organizations, there's the concept of a skip level. Skip levels down also. It doesn't always have to be people coming up to make complaints or to tell you what's going on. Walk down to the last person on the street and ask them, "So, hey, how are you doing? How do you think your role works? Do you know what's our strategy for this year? Do you know how the strategy is correlating to your own work? Do you have any questions about it? Can I answer it for you?" A lot of good organizations will have what are known as town halls or group talks, or call it what you will, wherein they will talk about what's important in the organization, what's important now, what's important in the future. They will talk about all of that stuff, and not just, the leader standing on a stage. It will be standing on a stage to let you know this is what's happening. Here's my number. Call me if you have questions. I remember I used to work with GE. erstwhile GE, which then became Genpact. And I remember one of the leaders had walked up when they said that they were going to convert from GE to Genpact. And there was a town hall and everyone was called. And the country leader at that time had come in and he said, very, very happily announced, so we're spinning off of GE and we're becoming Genpact. And there was excitement and there was trepidation. And when the leader realized that this is a mixed bag of response that I'm getting, he actually announced very clearly, he says, you know where I sit. You know what my extension is. You know what my number is. Pick up the phone and call me. Walk over to me if you're in the same location as I am. Talk to me. Tell me what's bothering you. Tell me what you're excited about. That's good leadership. So how you know whether your strategy is trickling down or not will happen in two ways. One, reach out to your people. Two, the numbers will show. Your performance will show. And that's the reason why performance management is not a once in a year thing. Performance management is a daily thing, is a weekly thing, is a quarterly thing, is a monthly thing, is a quarterly thing. Don't leave it just to the end of the year. Of course, in the workplace, it was much easier. Ravi says, this has actually been super tough to do remotely. In the workplace, it was much easier. Ravi, that's why a leader's job is not an easy one. You know what? I'm sure you've heard of this. And if you haven't, I'm just going to say Julius Caesar, Julius, my friend, Julius Caesar, the Roman leader said this, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. That is true even today. As a leader, we always aspire, when I'm in college, I'm going to do this. When when you're in college, you say, when I have a job, I'm going to be that. And then you say, right now, I'm just, a lowly employee who has to do all the grunt work. Wait till I become a manager. Wait till I become a leader. Not realizing that when you become a leader, it's tougher because suddenly you're responsible for your own work. You're responsible for other people's work. And you're responsible for taking care of those people whose work you're responsible for. So in a remote area, all the more reason it's so critical to have the conversation about what is the strategy and how is it rolling down into the individual's job. Asking people, how are you going to manage? I have to tell you this, and I'm sure most of you have experienced it, gone through it, or heard of it. When the pandemic started and when people started working from home, at first it was complete disbelief. People didn't know what to do. We were all running around like headless chickens. And then some wise managers, mind you, I'm not saying leaders, some wise managers decided, wow, you don't have any time to waste in a commute now. You don't have to worry about getting back home at a certain time because, hey, you are at home. So let me call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. What strategy requires you to have somebody work at 2 o'clock in the morning? What strategy requires you to tell people to start work at 7 a.m. and to end at 11 p.m.? Just because they're at home? As long as your employees are working in the time that they're working, and that's also a leader's job. Asking questions. Is your home enabled for you to have a private corner where you can hold client calls? If not, what is possible here? What can we do? How can we enable you? Remember this, the individual is working for the organization. It's also the organization, and therefore by relation, as a leader, it's your job to be able to create the space for your employee to perform. Is that there in your strategy? Have you tweaked your strategy to see how are we going to work in a world that has seen COVID, that is still going through COVID? Are you prepared? Is your strategy prepared to address all of this for people working remotely? If not, get on it now. Don't wait for another lockdown to hit you. I'm sure most organizations have done it. This is just a wake-up call for if it's not been done. And what's also happening is very slowly, very trepidatiously, organizations are beginning to come back to work. It's happening slowly, but it's happening very clearly. Are we prepared if there's going to be a next wave? Is our strategy informing that? And I think even more importantly, is our strategy informing our leaders how to handle situations like this? Is there a BCP, DRP? BCP is business continuity planning. DRP is disaster recovery planning. Is that happening? Do you have all of that stuff in your strategy? If you don't do it now, start right now. Don't worry just about marketing strategy and positioning strategy and sales and revenue strategy. Look at business continuity strategy in a situation like this. Look at how am I going to address. Twitter has said work from home forever. They would have obviously worked that into their strategy and enabled their leaders. So if you feel as a leader you're not enabled to be able to have those conversations with your people, you create your own strategy for your own role and say, okay, here's how I'm going to handle this. And then reach out to your HR and ask them to support you with it. Is there some template or a list of questions? I'm very happy to share that with you. So what I will do is, Team Creator, if you would please remind me to share that list with you. I will share the list with Team Creator and they will be able to share it with all of you. I'm sure you guys have shared your email IDs when you logged in. So I'm happy to share that list with you. Otherwise, if you have a specific ask, I think like Rahul did, I'm happy to do a one-to-one conversation with you and then we can try and figure out. So one of the things that I do is I do coach people on these things. So if you want, you're more than welcome to get into a coaching alignment and agreement with me. I think we should do a session on creating an effective business strategy. Sure. We can forward anything you share with us. Thank you so much, Team Creator. I will definitely be sharing it with everyone. What other specific questions might you have? Yeah, one of the things I said was, RSP, I'm going to talk about how performance management informs strategy. See, for performance management to inform strategy, there needs to be a little bit of continuity. So an organization needs to make sure that they are keeping their tabs. A lot of times what happens is, so we had a strategy, we met some part of it, we didn't meet some part of it. So we say, okay, what are the 3 things we learned? Why didn't we do this? Who's the person responsible for us not meeting our strategy? Off with their heads. Let's change this from here on. That may not necessarily be the best answer. If you can learn from why is it that your strategy didn't work? Why did your business performance not happen the way you thought it would? And then tweak your strategy the next year to make sure that those gaps are taken care of. Of course, if it's an external situation like COVID hit in the first wave, that's different. There are uncontrollable factors, there are controllable factors. So if it's an uncontrollable factor, sure, you can't really learn from, what can I do to stop an uncontrollable factor? But once an uncontrollable factor has been gone through, like for example, we went through COVID, we went through the lockdown. Now our next strategy that we make has to be keeping these learnings in mind. Similarly, we thought that we would do really, really well in selling a particular product or a particular service, and it didn't do so well. We didn't meet our numbers. We either fell short just by a little or we fell short by a whole lot. We need to be able to say in the next year in the planning phase, okay, I wasn't able to achieve my numbers by so much percent. What should I do differently the next year? So my strategy then starts to change. Do I need to hire different people? Do I need to, let's say, for example, I'm a very flat organization and I have me as the director or the CEO, CXO. And then directly under me, there is only a first line people manager. And then there is then there are the actual doers. Now, this first line people manager also has only about 3 or 4 years of experience, more than the doers. So do I really need someone in between? Because my time is getting chewed up by just advising, guiding, working with and for my first line manager. Instead, can I get somebody in between who's going to take care of a lot of these other operational things and other leadership things, and I can focus on expanding the business. So you need to be able to take care of that. I do also want to say one of these things. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner yourself, and you find yourself ending up doing a lot of the daily stuff, the operational stuff, rather than focusing on your strategy, you must put in hiring somebody else who can handle the daily stuff. So having an operations manager or having a somebody in the either in the C-suite or in the directorial level, have somebody between you and the doers who you can delegate to. Your job as a business owner is to expand your business. It's not to get involved in day-to-day operations. If you don't do your visioning, if you don't do your outside, you don't handle your clients, and you get involved in the nitty-gritty of why is this one part not okay, where can I go and get the substitute of this part for or service, etc., you're not going to be doing justice to your own vision and your own dream of your business. So coming back to how else can our business performance inform our strategy? Let's say you decided to go into a particular market and that market failed. You're not going to put that into your strategy the next time. You will hire somebody and you maybe put that in your strategy to hire a research organization that can do the research for you and tell you what's the best markets, what is the response to your products, what next, what should you be doing next, where should you be going next, do you need to change your target audience, do you need to change your positioning statement, etc. So looking at your numbers and then saying what did not allow us to achieve our numbers, achieve our goals, and then saying, therefore, what do I need to change my strategy? So they actually do talking together. It's not just in one go. Sid asks, so I hope that was helpful, RSP. Sid asks, in terms of strategy and visions, how often should we revisit it? I find it tough to keep that balance of not being too fickle, but also being malleable. I think that's a very important aspect to look at. We've often been told you must be, you must be steadfast. You can't change. Don't be fickle-minded, etc. But if the market is informing you that your strategy needs to be changed, then please change it. Now, in a lot of industries, that change, you need to be very agile and you need to look at, okay, this is not working. My strategy is not working in the first 3 months. I have to change it then. But if you're in a far more stable industry, if you're not in an industry which is very, very fast moving, like maybe like the whole piece on crypto, or even this whole piece on the internet or the Internet of Things, services which are based on the Internet of Things. If you're in that space, then even organizations aren't even setting goals which are a year long. They're looking at quarterly goals that need to be achieved, which then kind of add up to yearly goals. But similarly, if you're, let's say, for example, the steel industry or the manufacturing industry, or even the automobile industry, where things don't change on a dime, they don't change like right away, then you do have the time to look at your strategy over the year and say, okay, so next year, what do I need to do? Is the strategy going to pan out this year? Do I need to completely change it, etc.? Malleability also said is more about, I want to say the right words, which will be useful for you. So malleability is different from not knowing, so just going with the flow. I'll give you an example. There is this founder, and I'm not going to say gender or anything, or even be able to share the industry with you, because then it'll become very clear. There is the founder of an organization who's looking for investments. They have a great product. If they get the right investor and they stay true to their product, they can actually do a phenomenal job. They would actually have the first mover advantage in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, the founder, every time they go and they have an investor meeting, and those investors or the VCs give them another perspective or another angle, the founder goes and changes their product. And I know for a fact, because I have been with that founder, I have spoken to that founder, we have spent some time together. The product is really good. It's really, really powerful. It's just their inability to stick to their own understanding of their product and their willingness to be so malleable so as to change their vision for their product every single time that they meet an investor. That's not malleability. That's simply not knowing your product and simply not believing in your product. Malleability is, okay, I understand, here's the core of my product. I have full faith in my product. I've done my due diligence about my product. I'm willing to take inputs and add to it. I'm willing to take inputs about my strategy and add to it, or maybe take away a little from it, but not really change my strategy entirely. 100%, unless or until the information that you're getting from the market, from reliable sources consistently over a period of time is that you need to change your strategy entirely. Then go ahead and do it. Have you done your due diligence? That's the most important thing. Have you given it the time it deserves? That's the most important thing. So you must remember this. Remember, change. If you keep changing, sometimes people might think you are being fickle. You're not being steadfast. The fact of the matter is, if you're in an industry that demands that kind of change and you're not changing, my friend, you're going to fail anyway. Bear that in mind. Okay, so this has been a wonderful conversation. As usual, I've gone over my 30-minute mark by leaps and bounds. Thank you, Team Creator, for bearing with me. Any last questions that I can answer very, very quickly? And I'm hoping that this session was useful for all of you, that the examples helped, and that I've been able to answer your questions. I will be sending across the list of questions that you can reflect on for your business strategy. I'm glad to hear that, RSP. Thank you so much. It'd be great to know your name if you can send me a private text. Thank you, Ravi. I'm glad that you found, and well, I'm hoping you found it useful. Any last questions, Anil? I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so thank you, Sanjana. Have a good evening ahead. I'm just going to do a quick recap. Remember this, if you've got your vision, mission, etc. in place, if you have your goals in place, make sure that you're putting together a very well-informed and a robust strategy. Remember, you don't have to create your strategy alone. If you're in a largish organization, you will have people with their roles. So HR will bring their strategy, marketing will bring their strategy, and so on and so forth, and that will all get cascaded and brought together, rolled into one organizational strategy. If you don't have all of those people, if you're an individual performer or an individual leader, if you're an individual founder and you need to make this strategy, please use the right tools. PESTLE is one tool that can help inform your strategy. I'm going to just write that down. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't refer to this earlier. Look up PESTLE on Google. You'll get a lot of examples. It's a great way to start looking at what should you be putting into your own strategy. Once you have your strategy, make sure it is communicated with all the people in your organization. Whether you have one more individual in the organization or you have 15,000, it doesn't matter. Make sure it's cascaded down to the very last person. You may or may not need to be the only person who's doing the cascade. So if you have a lot of people in your organization reporting, if there's like an hierarchy reporting in, make sure you've communicated to your team has communicated to their team, and their team, and their team, down to the last person. As a leader of this hierarchy, make sure you have your finger on the pulse of the last person down the mile. Make sure they have understood the strategy the way you have defined the strategy. That's another place where it falls through. You say X and they say idli. It needs to be X and X, or idli and idli. It cannot be X and idli. Make sure that happens. Thank you, Rajesh. So make sure that happens. And then, of course, regular communication. How are people doing against the strategy? Making sure there are regular reviews depending on your role. If you're in sales, do you need to do a daily review or a weekly review? If you are in HR, again, do you need a weekly review or a monthly review? If you're in marketing, how often do you need to keep reviewing your strategy against what's happening in the market? All of that makes a huge, huge, huge amount of difference. And keep checking your business performance parameters to see what do I need to shift in my strategy. That's how they both work. It's not a mutually exclusive situation. It is a mutual communication situation. With that, thank you so very much, everyone. It was a pleasure to talk to you guys and to answer your questions. As always, your questions expand my own world and help me think through what else is possible. So thank you very much. Have a good evening ahead. You're so welcome, Geeta. Bye-bye. And thank you everyone who's watching anywhere, if you're watching today or later. Bye-bye.